The town of Raven Hollow was famous for its charm. Nestled among rolling hills and dense forests, it looked like a place frozen in time. On the surface, everything seemed ordinary. Kids played in sunlit streets, neighbors waved from porches, and the local diner served pancakes to regulars who smiled politely at strangers. Yet beneath the idyllic facade, the town held secrets the townspeople whispered about only in hushed tones. And tonight, those secrets were about to claw their way out of the shadows. Detective Ethan Cole had seen enough in his 15 years on the force to know that appearances were often deceiving. As he walked the streets that crisp autumn evening, he felt a tension in the air that wasn't entirely explained by the annual Harvest Festival. It was subtle at first, a locked door here, a nervous glance there, shadows moving just out of sight. Ethan's instincts told him something dangerous was brewing, though he had no idea how sinister it would become. Meanwhile, Maya Sinclair, a young journalist from the city, arrived in Raven Hollow. She was eager to write a feature on small-town life, enchanted by the cobblestone streets, pumpkin-decorated porches, and the smell of wood smoke drifting from chimneys. But as she wandered through the town square, she noticed oddities. One family's curtains twitched as she passed. Another homeowner peered at her from behind a cracked window and immediately pulled it shut. Most unsettling of all was a faded poster tacked to a lamppost. Missing, Emily Harper, age 8. Maya frowned. Emily had disappeared over 10 years ago. Why would someone still leave this poster in the middle of the street? As the evening progressed, the town's energy shifted. The festival began with laughter, music, and the smell of caramel apples wafting through the streets. Children darted through a hay maze, parents cheered, and local bands played folk tunes on a makeshift stage. Onlookers clapped and danced, oblivious to the subtle sense of unease that had settled over the town. Ethan stood at the edge of the festival, his eyes scanning the crowd. He saw the way shadows clung to alleyways, how a figure in a dark coat lingered near the maze, watching the children. He felt it in his bones. Someone was here, and they didn't belong. Then it happened. A scream cut through the festival like a knife. Families froze. Ethan's heart pounded as he sprinted toward the sound. In the center of the hay maze, a body lay sprawled across the straw. The teenager's face was pale, eyes wide with terror, and a single crimson stain marred the front of their shirt. Panic erupted. Parents grabbed their children and fled, the cheerful music turning into a discordant echo against the rising chaos. Maya pulled out her camera, capturing the scene, but even as she snapped photos, she felt eyes on her. Someone was moving in the shadows, just beyond the festival lights, watching the reactions of the panicked crowd. Her pulse quickened. The story she thought she was coming to write, charming portraits of small-town life, was suddenly more dangerous than she could have imagined. Ethan knelt beside the body, checking for signs of life. It was too late. He looked around, scanning faces, trying to discern who had done this. The crowd murmured in disbelief. Some whispered about old grudges. Others murmured of curses and bad luck. But Ethan knew better. This was no accident. This was a calculated act of terror. He rose and addressed the townspeople, trying to calm them. "Everyone, please stay where you are. Lock your doors if you need to, and call for help if you see anything suspicious." His voice carried authority, but beneath it was an unshakable dread. He had faced murder before, but never one so deliberate, so symbolic. This act was meant to send a message, and he had no idea what that message was yet. Maya approached him cautiously. "Detective Cole," she said, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands, Do you think someone's planning more?" His jaw tightened. "I don't know yet, but whoever did this wanted us to see it. That's never a good sign." Night descended, casting long shadows across the festival grounds. The warmth of lanterns and bonfires did little to chase the creeping cold. Families hurried home, but Ethan noticed that some houses, which normally had lights on and doors open to neighbors, were dark and silent. He couldn't shake the feeling that the town was holding its breath, waiting for the next strike. Later that night, Ethan returned to the police station. The office was quiet except for the faint hum of the old heating system. He sat at his desk reviewing the crime reports from the past week. Minor thefts had escalated to vandalism, and now murder. Nothing about it made sense until he noticed a pattern. Every incident pointed toward the outskirts of town, near the abandoned Hawthorne factory, a place that had been closed for decades. Rumors of illicit activities in its past were whispered by the townspeople, but nothing had ever been proven. He was about to call it a night when a folded piece of paper slid under his door. The handwriting was jagged and hurried. Ethan opened it slowly. His stomach turned as he read, "Tonight, everyone will see the darkness." The words were chilling, an ominous promise. Ethan leaned back in his chair, staring at the ceiling. The festival, the screams, the shadows, all of it had only been the beginning. He didn't know who had written the note, but he knew one thing: Raven Hollow was about to confront the darkness it had tried so hard to bury. Meanwhile, somewhere in the shadows, the masked figure who had orchestrated the night's chaos watched. Every reaction, every whispered fear, every heartbeat of panic was carefully noted. The game had begun, and no one, neither Ethan nor the townspeople, would escape unharmed. Outside, the wind carried the faint scent of smoke and decay from the old Hawthorne factory. The town slept fitfully, unaware that the night had only just begun. And in that darkness, secrets stirred, waiting for the moment they could surface, ready to consume everything in their path. The morning after the Harvest Festival, Raven Hollow awoke to an uneasy silence. The laughter and music of the previous night had been replaced by whispers of fear and speculation. Families boarded up windows, neighbors eyed each other with suspicion, and the police station was swamped with frantic calls. The town's perfect image was cracking, and Detective Ethan Cole knew that this was only the beginning. Ethan moved through the streets, taking note of the subtle signs of unease. A fence post had been smashed in the dead of night, leaving deep gouges in the wood. Windows were broken on a storefront, though nothing appeared stolen. And most unsettling of all, there were footprints leading toward the Hawthorne factory, which had remained abandoned for decades. At the same time, Maya Sinclair began her own investigation. Her camera had captured fleeting glimpses of shadowy figures during the festival, and she now noticed patterns. Some of the town's most respected families were hiding strange behavior. A once trusted teacher was nowhere to be seen, and the mayor's son, usually seen cycling around town in broad daylight, had vanished. Rumors swirled of affairs, old grudges, and crimes that no one wanted to speak of. Maya visited the local library to dig into the town's history. She pulled out dusty records, faded newspaper clippings, and forgotten police files. One name kept appearing: Hawthorne Factory. The building had once been a booming textile factory, but it had closed suddenly, leaving workers unemployed and families destitute. Over the years, townspeople whispered about strange happenings there: illegal gambling, clandestine meetings, and disappearances that were quietly covered up. One case in particular caught Maya's attention. A young woman had vanished after entering the factory to report thefts, and no one ever saw her again. As the day wore on, Ethan called in his team for a briefing. He laid out the details: the festival murder, the series of suspicious incidents over the past week, and the note slipped under his door. Everyone agreed that the events were connected and that someone in Raven Hollow was orchestrating them with meticulous planning. "We're dealing with someone who knows the town inside out," Ethan said, frustration lining his voice. "They're using our history, our secrets against us." Meanwhile, townspeople began to panic. Friends accused friends of betrayal, old enemies resurfaced, and families were torn apart by fear. Ethan noticed that many houses left doors unlocked despite the terror outside, an indication that someone inside might be aiding the chaos. That evening, Maya joined Ethan at the police station, showing him her research. "Look at this," she said, spreading out old reports and photographs on a table. "These disappearances, the Hawthorne factory, someone is using it as a hub, but I think it's more than that. They're targeting the town methodically. It's like they're punishing us for what's been hidden." Ethan frowned, scanning the documents. "You're right. Every incident, every crime in the past week leads back here, and the people responsible, they know exactly what they're doing. They're exploiting our sins." As night fell, the town descended into a tense unease. Families barricaded themselves inside, afraid to venture out. The wind howled through the streets, rattling shutters and shaking loose leaves from trees. Ethan patrolled with 2 officers, his flashlight cutting through the darkness as shadows danced in every corner. Suddenly, a scream tore through the night. Ethan and the officers sprinted toward a house on the outskirts of town. The front door was ajar, and inside the furniture was overturned. A family of 4 huddled in the corner, terrified. The father explained that someone had broken in, leaving cryptic messages scrawled on the walls. "The darkness sees all," and "No one is safe." Ethan's blood ran cold. Whoever was behind this wasn't just committing crimes, they were sending messages. The terror was intentional, psychological. And the pattern was clear. The more the town tried to hide, the more exposed they became. Meanwhile, Maya continued her investigation at the Hawthorne factory. She snuck past the rusted gates and found evidence of recent activity, footprints in the dust, fresh graffiti, and discarded items from the festival, jackets, scarves, a child's toy. It was as if the masked figure had been watching every step, waiting for the right moment to strike again. Suddenly, a shadow moved across the wall. Maya froze, heart pounding. A masked figure stepped into the faint light, their presence commanding and terrifying. Maya ducked behind a stack of crates, holding her breath. The figure lingered for a moment, then vanished into the darkness. She snapped a quick photo before retreating, but she knew the danger was real, closer than anyone in the town could imagine. Back at the police station, Ethan reviewed the festival footage alongside Maya's photos. He noticed something that chilled him to the bone. In nearly every image, a figure lurked in the background, often partially hidden, watching the residents. The figure's movements were deliberate, almost theatrical, as if the terror itself was the ultimate goal. Ethan and Maya realized that the town's darkest secrets weren't just personal, they were interconnected. Every family, every citizen had something to hide, and someone was using those secrets as a weapon. It wasn't random, it was calculated, precise, and terrifyingly intimate. By midnight, Raven Hollow had transformed. The once peaceful town was a maze of fear. Street lights flickered, homes were darkened, and shadows stretched across every corner. Families whispered in the dark, unsure who to trust. Doors were locked, but no one felt truly safe. The masked figure could be anywhere, watching, waiting, ready to punish the guilty. Ethan sat in his patrol car, reviewing his notes. Maya joined him, placing her camera carefully on the dashboard. "This isn't just about murder," she said quietly. "It's about exposing the town for what it really is. They're making everyone face the darkness inside themselves." Ethan nodded grimly. "And if we don't find them soon, more people will die, and the secrets, they'll consume this town entirely." Outside, the wind picked up, carrying with it a faint, acrid smell, smoke, decay, and something more sinister, something that seemed almost alive. The Hawthorne factory loomed in the distance, dark and silent, like a predator waiting for the hunt to continue. In a quiet alley, a figure slipped between shadows, leaving behind a message scrawled in fresh chalk on the pavement. The night has just begun. The town shivered. No one knew who would be next, or whether anyone would escape unscathed. Night had fallen over Raven Hollow, and with it, the town's calm facade had crumbled entirely. Streetlights flickered erratically, casting jagged shadows across the empty streets. The Harvest Festival grounds were deserted, the echoes of last night's laughter replaced by distant, anguished cries. Windows were shuttered, doors bolted, but no lock could keep out what was coming. Detective Ethan Cole patrolled the streets, flashlight cutting swaths through the darkness. The chaos had begun in earnest. Reports came in of people disappearing, homes broken into, and strange cryptic messages scrawled across walls. "Your sins will find you," and "The darkness sees all." Panic had settled over the town like a physical fog, seeping into every home, every heart. Ethan's thoughts raced. Every clue pointed back to the Hawthorne factory. Whoever was orchestrating this knew the town intimately. They knew the secrets, the scandals, and the old grudges, and tonight it was all coming to light. Meanwhile, Maya Sinclair moved cautiously through a back alley, camera in hand, capturing every shadow and every fleeting movement. The town was unraveling. Families were turning on each other. Neighbors whispered accusations across fences. Old wounds reopened as people began to suspect their closest friends and even family members of complicity. Maya ducked as a figure darted across the street. Heart pounding, she realized it was one of the masked figure's traps, a decoy meant to scare her, to test her nerves. She pressed on, slipping into the shadows near the Hawthorne factory, determined to find evidence of who or what was controlling the night. Inside the police station, Ethan coordinated patrols, trying desperately to protect residents. Reports were pouring in. The Bennett family, longtime pillars of the community, had vanished from their home, doors left wide open. The local diner had been ransacked. Graffiti on the wall spelled threats and secrets from the owner's past. A child had been left alone in the middle of the street, clutching a note that read, "Run, or the darkness will find you." Ethan knew the pattern. The masked figure wasn't just killing, they were punishing, exposing, terrorizing. Each act was personal, deliberate, designed to fracture the town psychologically before physically. By 11 p.m., the streets were a war zone. Fires burned in trash bins, cars were overturned, and terrified residents ran from alley to alley, unsure of who to trust. Ethan and his team responded to a distress call from the edge of town. A family was trapped inside their home. Someone had barricaded the front door from the outside, leaving windows blocked. Inside, the family cowered together, terrified. The youngest child, trembling, whispered, "They know everything." Ethan's team broke down the door, rescuing the family, just as another masked figure appeared in the street, watching. The figure didn't flee when the police arrived. They simply vanished into the shadows, as if daring Ethan to follow. Meanwhile, Maya entered the Hawthorne factory, stepping carefully over broken glass and rusted machinery. The air was heavy with decay and the smell of smoke. Graffiti covered the walls, names, dates, accusations, and threats. She realized with horror that the masked figure had been recording and documenting the town's sins for months, perhaps years. The factory wasn't just a hideout, it was a gallery of vengeance. Suddenly, she heard a scraping noise behind her. Spinning, she caught a glimpse of the masked figure standing at the top of a staircase, silhouetted against a dim light. Her heart raced. The figure was terrifyingly calm, deliberate in their movements. Maya held her camera up, snapping photos, but the figure didn't flinch. Instead, they vanished into the darkness, leaving Maya to navigate the maze of shadows and traps alone. Back on the streets, Ethan was facing a different kind of horror. Townspeople who had tried to escape were caught in meticulously planned traps. Some streets were blocked by fallen trees, others were filled with sharp barricades. The masked figure had orchestrated the chaos to perfection, turning the town into a labyrinth of terror. Every turn held danger, every alleyway was a potential trap. Ethan realized that the masked figure's goal was more than just murder. They were exposing the darkness lurking in every home, every heart. Families with secrets were targeted first. Those who had hidden crimes, betrayals, or lies were being forced to confront them or pay the ultimate price. Hours passed, and the town descended further into madness. Maya discovered a hidden room inside the Hawthorne factory, a chamber filled with surveillance equipment, photos of the town's residents, and notes detailing their sins. Every family, every citizen had been observed. Nothing had gone unnoticed. The masked figure had been watching for months, planning tonight as the ultimate reckoning. Ethan and Maya reunited near the factory, coordinating a plan to stop the mastermind. But the moment they approached, another masked figure emerged, attacking them with precision and intent. Ethan fought fiercely, protecting Maya, but the figure was fast and methodical. It was clear they had rehearsed every movement. The fight spilled into the main hall of the factory, where the walls were lined with faces, photographs of the missing, the guilty, and the innocent, all carefully labeled with sins and secrets. Maya gasped as she realized the scale of the figure's plan. This wasn't about revenge for a single crime. It was about exposing the entire town, tearing the community apart from the inside. Suddenly, Ethan spotted movement at the top of a catwalk. The masked figure was there, watching, orchestrating, controlling the chaos below, like a conductor with a symphony of terror. Ethan shouted, demanding answers, but the figure's only response was a mocking gesture, signaling that the night wasn't over and that no one in the town would be spared. Outside, screams echoed as more townspeople were ensnared in traps, chased by figures moving silently through the streets. Families huddled together in terror, realizing that their secrets had made them targets. Trust had evaporated, fear ruled every interaction. Raven Hollow was no longer a town, it was a battlefield, and the enemy was invisible, omnipresent, and terrifyingly intimate. By 3 a.m., exhaustion set in, but the terror did not relent. Ethan and Maya discovered another chamber in the factory, this one filled with files, journals, and photographs detailing past crimes, hidden affairs, and long-buried betrayals. Each entry was evidence that no one in the town was truly innocent. The masked figure had studied the town meticulously, exploiting every flaw, every lie, to craft the perfect night of reckoning. Ethan's mind raced. "We have to stop them," he said, determination hardening his voice. "If we don't, more people will die, and Raven Hollow will be destroyed completely." Maya nodded. "But how do you fight someone who knows everything about everyone, someone who's already won before the game even started?" They had no answers, only urgency. The town's darkness had been revealed, and it was consuming everything in its path. Tonight had shown them that the enemy was not just a single figure, but a force that had infiltrated every home, every secret, and every soul. As the first rays of dawn threatened the horizon, Ethan and Maya prepared for a final confrontation. The masked figure was waiting, and Raven Hollow's fate hung in the balance. And somewhere in the shadows, the figure left a final message for the night. This is only the beginning. Dawn had not yet broken over Raven Hollow, but the town was already a shadow of itself. Smoke curled from abandoned cars and toppled trash bins, while sirens wailed in the distance. The streets were eerily quiet, save for the occasional scream or shouted warning. What had begun as a peaceful festival had become a nightmare, and every resident now knew that no one in Raven Hollow was safe or innocent. Detective Ethan Cole moved cautiously through the streets, flashlight in hand, every sense on high alert. Beside him, Maya Sinclair clutched her camera, snapping photos of the destruction. They had survived the night so far, but Ethan knew that the true danger still waited. The masked figure who had orchestrated the terror and the network of accomplices who had been working in secret for years. The Hawthorne factory loomed ahead, black against the dim pre-dawn sky. Its rusted gates groaned in the wind, a reminder of the decades of darkness hidden within. Ethan and Maya approached cautiously, knowing that the final confrontation would take place inside. Inside, the factory was a nightmare frozen in time. The walls were lined with photographs of the town's residents, missing children, past victims, and notes detailing secrets, lies, and betrayals. Crates and machinery had been arranged to create a maze-like structure designed to confuse and trap anyone who dared enter. And at the center, standing atop a makeshift platform, was the masked figure. Their presence was commanding, terrifying, almost ritualistic. "You've seen it all now," the figure said, their voice distorted but unmistakably cold. "Every secret, every betrayal, every sin. This town is rotten, and it was my duty to reveal it. No one escapes the reckoning." Ethan stepped forward, hand on his holster. "Enough," he said. "This ends tonight. You're not punishing anyone. You're just terrorizing them. Stop this madness." The figure laughed, a sound that echoed off the factory walls. "Madness? No, this is justice. They've hidden behind lies for decades. They've ignored the cries of the innocent. Tonight, they see the truth." Maya glanced at Ethan, her eyes wide. They've documented everything, every family, every resident. It's all here." She gestured to the walls covered with photographs and files. Ethan's jaw tightened. "We need to neutralize them before more people die. If they've set traps for the streets, the factories, anyone who comes here could be next." The masked figure leapt from the platform, moving with unnerving speed. Ethan and Maya ducked as traps triggered around them, tripwires, falling crates, and hidden spikes. It was a maze of death, carefully planned. Every step forward was dangerous, every turn a potential ambush. Ethan fired a warning shot, causing the figure to retreat temporarily. Maya grabbed a rope and swung across a gap in the factory floor, narrowly avoiding a hidden pitfall. Their teamwork was instinctual, honed by the urgency of survival and the stakes of the night. As they pressed deeper into the factory, they encountered the first of the accomplices, a group of townspeople who had aided the masked figure. Some were terrified, some complicit, but all were armed and desperate. A tense confrontation ensued. Ethan and Maya had no choice but to fight, dodging swings, fists, and improvised weapons while trying to minimize casualties. In the chaos, Ethan spotted the figure attempting to ascend a stairwell leading to the control room where the mastermind could orchestrate further traps. He called out, "Stop! You won't win!" The figure paused, almost theatrically, before turning, and then, in a shocking reveal, Ethan recognized the face beneath the mask, the mayor, Harrington, the town's respected leader. The mayor's eyes were cold, hard, and unyielding. "You don't understand," Harrington said. "I've protected this town for years, but the darkness, it's always been here. Tonight, I made it visible. Only then could we purge it." Maya gasped. "You've been behind all of this? All the disappearances, the attacks, everything?" Harrington nodded. "Every act has purpose. The town needed to face itself. Its sins had to be exposed." Ethan's blood ran cold. A figure entrusted to protect the town had become its predator. "You've killed people, innocent people. This isn't justice, it's murder." Harrington raised a hand, and suddenly more accomplices emerged from the shadows, armed and ready. Ethan and Maya realized that stopping them would require careful strategy, not just brute force. Using the factory's chaos to their advantage, Ethan split the group, drawing some accomplices into one area while they cornered Harrington in the control room. Maya's camera flashes disoriented the remaining accomplices, giving Ethan the opening he needed. With precision and courage, he subdued the final threats, handcuffing them one by one. Finally, it was just Ethan, Maya, and Harrington. The factory was a ruin, smoke curling from small fires, broken machinery scattered across the floor, and the remnants of the night's terror strewn everywhere. Harrington stood defiantly, but his composure had cracks. "You think you've won?" Harrington spat. "The darkness isn't gone. It's in every home, every heart. You can lock me away, but the town will never be innocent again." Ethan approached slowly, keeping his hand near his weapon. "Maybe not, but we stop you now. That's enough." With a final move, Harrington was restrained and led out of the factory. Outside, the sun was beginning to rise, casting pale light over the devastated town. Raven Hollow was battered, scared, and shaken to its core, but the nightmare had ended, for now. Maya documented everything, capturing images of the factory, the evidence, and the townspeople who had survived. Her report would reveal the horrifying truth to the world, exposing the darkness that had festered behind closed doors for decades. The townspeople slowly emerged from their homes, exhausted and wary. They had seen their secrets laid bare, their lives threatened, and the horrors that could lurk behind even the most familiar faces. Families hugged, whispered apologies, and tried to rebuild trust, knowing it would take years to recover. Ethan walked the streets alone, reflecting on the night's events. The town had survived, but the scars would remain. The darkness he had sensed from the beginning had been real, and it took a human form, one that nearly destroyed everything he had sworn to protect. Maya approached him, her camera still in hand. "Do you think it's really over?" she asked quietly. Ethan shook his head. "No, darkness doesn't disappear. It waits, always. But we survived tonight, and that's enough for now. Raven Hollow will rebuild, and we'll make sure no one forgets what happened here." The camera panned across the town, streets emptying of fear-stricken residents, smoke curling from distant chimneys, and the ruins of the Hawthorne factory looming like a silent monument to the horrors revealed. And in the shadows of the town, unseen by most, secrets still whispered. The darkness had been exposed, but its echoes would linger forever. Raven Hollow would never be the same again.